Hey there! The next patch for the War Within 11.0.7 will be bringing with it a pretty substantial update for Void Elves. As many of you know, Void Elves is still the most underdeveloped race addition that has been added to the game in terms of what exactly defines them, getting next to no foundational lore before they are made playable, and, since they're at least the only story beats we've really gotten for them, were footnotes in the Dark Heart quests leading up to the pre-patch event. It's important to note here that World of Warcraft has been slowly expanding upon its magic system beyond even just the 6 main cosmic pillars. Some classic and common examples of this are Frostfire and Shadowflame that showcase a mixing of various elements to create a new kind of magic. Arguably, Dragonflight had a larger variety and focus on combination magic than previous expansions and storylines, giving us 8 new types of magic. 3 of which are important for now as they all involve the Void as the main source of magic. Those variations are Shadowflame, Regular Shadow or Void, and Cosmic Void. What's interesting is that while Shadowflame is a combination of different magics, Shadow and Cosmic Void are just different versions of the same source, with Dragonflight telling us that the Void we've seen so far on Azeroth, as well as what Shadow Priests and Warlocks tapped into, is actually Old God Void, or rather, their take on it, kind of like a dialect but with magic instead of language, with the game dropping hints that some of the Old Gods may have even partially rebelled a little bit against the Void Lords during the time of the Black Empire. Within Neltharion's lab Aberrus, players would get our first look at the new concept of Cosmic Void. Instead of just purple and black like the traditional Void we've been used to, Cosmic Void is a vibrant blue-black, often accompanied by pink and purple swirls or stars, and the occasional chunks of what looks almost like broken glass, but made out of this magic. So far, the lore we've gotten on this type of shadow magic is that it's the true form and power of the Void as a cosmic force, or at least the truest we know of so far. The World of Warcraft lore changes up a good bit from time to time. When it comes to the Void Elves, however, a lot of their racials and settings seem pretty closely tied to the Old Gods, which makes sense given that the Old Gods are the servants of the Void. Their spatial rift ability that they currently have is on brand with the original Shadow aesthetic, including the poof-like look they have at the end of it that we see as players, while the rifts NPCs of the race can create are also on brand with that original Shadow aesthetic. We also know that there is a timeline where almost every Void Elf succumbs to their whispers and become foot soldiers under N'Zoth, where they turn on everyone in Stormwind. Of course, Void-aligned characters being on the same side makes sense regardless of what kind of Void they wield, but the setup was definitely leaning more towards original Shadow, at least for the player characters, as player characters of a race often do not follow the same rules as their racial leaders, like Sylvanas being an elf or Kalia being a light-bound undead, while the Forsaken players are still just Scourge-level regular undead. Jumping forward to the next patch, however, and the Void Elf racials receive a complete overhaul. The spatial rift ability will now launch out faster, have a wider range that you can activate it from, and has a new visual. This enhanced visual changes it from the original Shadow to be very closely to Cosmic Void instead, creating an almost symbiote-like pool across the ground with a cerulean star floating in the middle of the pool. Activating it, it now has a flourish of purple, blue, black energy, with blue and pink stars, and those glass-like shards falling off of it. It's honestly kind of reminiscent to me of the corridors of darkness that they use in the Kingdom Hearts franchise to travel between worlds and realms. This change fully embraces the Void Elves in a Cosmic Void-like direction, which isn't entirely surprising given the push for grander cosmetic themes and how they affect the universe, but at the same time, it kind of is considering we only just recently started to see Cosmic Void, with Sarkareth, the Nerubians, and Xal'atath, as well as the fact that it's an actual advancement for the Void Elf identity, which has kind of sat stagnant since 2018. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't now curious as to how the original Shadow will play out in the game going forward. Will it kind of disappear? Will it just get rolled into this idea of Cosmic Void, or what? But that's not the only racial update, however, as the Entropic Embrace racial is also receiving some changes. That should make High Elf enjoyers a bit happy. Currently, in the game there's a 33% chance that a combat action will proc Blueberry mode, which increases all healing and damage that you do by 5% and converts it into Shadow Frost. This state lasts for 12 seconds and is supposed to have a minute cooldown before it can reactivate, but I'll be honest, I've had it pop within 20 seconds of going away before. With the update, they are greatly reducing the activation chance. I'm not sure what the new chances percentage will be, but that's not the only change, as its functionality is slightly changing as well. Instead of amplifying all damage and healing by 5% and turning it into Shadow Frost, it will instead take 5% of what was done, and only that 5% will become Shadow Frost healing and damage. Another way to look at it, if that was confusing, is that instead of getting a 5% bonus on the whole thing that it's calculating the new damage or healing it should do, it will now just take 5% of what was already going to be done, which, since I mentioned it a minute ago, a nice bonus for people who like to roleplay as a high elf. I will mention that the Blueberry mode still doesn't look like it's for sure OG Shadow or Cosmic Void. So when I personally feel like roleplaying that way, I just tell myself I'm being blessed by the Winter Queen or a Loon, since it's a similar color to the fairy magic anima that we see in Ardenweald, and the whole Winter Moon thing could account for the Shadow Frost on a gameplay aspect. But what do you guys think of this update? It's not the biggest lore advancement I would have hoped for in terms of Void Elves, but I'm glad that it is at least something for them to help kind of fill out that niche a bit. And honestly, I do prefer the new visuals compared to the old ones, but what do you guys think?